Moving on, the death of Pakistan's former dictator Pervez Musharraf has triggered a political storm here in India. It all started with a tweet by Congress leader Sharat Sabharwal. Let me quote what he wrote on Twitter this morning. He says, Pervez Musharraf, former Pakistani president, dies of a rare disease. Once an implacable foe of India, he became a real force for peace between 2002 and 2007, unquote. Now, needless to say, the statement did not go down very well with the BJP. BJP leaders started accusing the Congress of eulogizing Musharraf and siding with Pakistan, the enemy. But Mr. Tharoor is standing his ground. He says it was the BJP government under Atal Bihari Vajpayee that began peace talks with Pervez Musharraf. Listen to this.
That Mr. Musharraf was an absolute implacable enemy of ours. He was responsible for Kargil and for all the terrible things happening. But after 2002, it was a different story. It was the BJP government of Prime Minister Vajpayee that negotiated the ceasefire with Pakistan. There was a joint statement issued with a handshake by Vajpayee Sahab and Musharraf. So I don't know why the BJP wants to attack their own Prime Minister for the policy. So when Mr. Musharraf passed away, I recall both. I said he had been an implacable foe of India, but for 4 years thereafter he worked for peace. Isme kya galti hai? They should ask themselves what is the historical mistake. If they want to attack Mr. Vajpayee, I leave it to the BJP to do so. We are too polite to attack Mr. Vajpayee.
So what exactly is Pervez Musharraf's imprint on Indo-Pak relations? After all, he was the architect/villain of the Kargil war. He also aced the doublespeak on terrorism. Why then did Sharat Sabharwal call him a real force for peace? Our next report has the answer.
Sadr Pakistan, General Pervez Musharraf. Pervez Musharraf.
Pervez Musharraf has worn many hats in his career. General, dictator and traitor to the country. His stunning rise to power is only dwarfed by his rapid fall to ignominy. For many Indians, Musharraf was the dictator next door. But beyond the perceptions, what was his imprint on Indo-Pak relations? Let's find out. Musharraf was appointed Pakistan's army chief in 1998. Back then, he was third in line for the post. He was academic, straight-talking and apparently liberal. All qualities that impressed then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. As time would prove, it was a fateful impression. Musharraf was the mastermind behind Pakistan's infiltrations in Kargil. The spectre of war between India and Pakistan loomed large in those 2 months. Eventually, India threw out the Pakistani soldiers disguised as Kashmiri militants. But within Pakistan, the Kargil war led to a breakdown in relations. Musharraf claimed the plan was blessed by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. But Sharif denied that claim. After Kargil, there were murmurs of a possible coup in Islamabad. They became louder and evident by October 1999. Musharraf deposed and exiled Nawaz Sharif.
I only wish to assure you that the
And
situation
thus
in the
began
country
9 years
is
of
perfectly
military
calm,
rule in Pakistan.
stable and under control. Let no outside forces think that they can take advantage of the prevailing situation.
Musharraf's biggest legacy is the strange but strong relations between Pakistan and America. He aligned with George Bush after the 9/11 attacks by Al-Qaeda. Western money and weapons kept flowing in exchange for Pakistan's support in nearby Afghanistan. Musharraf's support for America earned him enemies in the army as well as Pakistan's radical Muslim groups. One of them, the Tehreek-e-Taliban, emerged under his watch. No doubt Musharraf wasn't sincere about his war on terror. He repeatedly denied knowing the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden. But it turned out the Al-Qaeda chief was living in Abbottabad all along, right under the nose of Pakistan's army. On India, he would do a complete U-turn after Kargil. Musharraf and Vajpayee crafted almost 5 years of peace between India and Pakistan. The zenith of that period was the SAARC summit in 2004. After the summit, both leaders released a joint statement. Musharraf promised that no terrorist acts would be launched from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. He also agreed to a structured dialogue on Kashmir. Was Musharraf serious about these statements? It's hard to say, but there is no denying that he created the impression that he was serious. Musharraf had 5 meetings with Indian Prime Ministers when he ruled Pakistan, 2 with Vajpayee and 3 with Manmohan Singh. Like all dictators, Musharraf had an inflated understanding of his own popularity. But in reality, he was battling multiple controversies. His party was ousted in the 2008 elections and he himself faced the prospect of impeachment. So in August 2008, Musharraf stepped down. But his troubles wouldn't end. He faced criminal charges in the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. Many of our supporters say Musharraf purposefully did not give enough security. He also faced treason charges for his 1999 coup. So Musharraf did what most former dictators do. He fled. He started living in Dubai in 2016. 3 years later, a special court in Pakistan sentenced him to death for the military coup. The decision was overturned, but the legacy stuck.
Sharat Sabharwal is a former India ambassador to Pakistan. He's someone who knows Pakistan and, more importantly, Musharraf very well. Sir, thank you very much for your time here on Mirror Now. Let me ask you straight up, given your deep understanding of Pakistan and of Musharraf, is it your belief that if Pervez Musharraf wasn't the army chief, Kargil would probably not have happened?
Well, he was a very ambitious and adventurous person. A commando by training, he grabbed power and he hung on to power audaciously. And I think that was reflective of what he did in Kargil also. Look, there could have been another individual of the same kind who would have been the chief of army staff and done the same thing. No two heads of the army are similar. People have their own, level of adventurism or, caution, etc., etc. But he was certainly the kind. When he was appointed, for example, in October 1998, I asked a Pakistani senior politician, about his assessment. I was Deputy High Commissioner then, about his assessment of Musharraf. And he inter alia told me that he was he was very adventurous. And that adventurous nature was in ample display in the following years.
There is already a political tutu meme, as it were, between the Congress and the BJP that has broken out over Mr. Musharraf's legacy as far as India is concerned. In your view, was he a war wager or someone who was willing to give peace a chance?
Well, let me put it this way. His is a mixed legacy when it comes to relations with India. He pursued the Army's core interests and agenda as the Chief of Army Staff and his first 2 years after the coup till 9/11. Don't forget, he was not only the architect of Kargil, but some high-profile terror attacks took place during that period, including against our parliament and hijacking of an Indian Airlines aircraft. He took a hard line at Agra, describing terrorists as freedom fighters, which led to the failure of the summit. But 9/11 brought a lot of pressure on him. And we know that an American interlocutor told him that unless he changed Pakistan's policies, especially in relation to Afghanistan, they would bomb Pakistan back to the Stone Age. This is what he himself has admitted in one of his writings. So that pressure came, and he also had the need for legitimacy in the eyes of the West because he wanted to prolong his tenure, moving from being a military dictator to some kind of legitimacy under the constitution and so on, which is what he did. Now, all that combined together for him not to make a half-hearted U-turn on the Afghan front. That was a half-hearted turn, because although he made Pakistan a frontline state in the American war on terror, But he also, Pakistan under him, received the Taliban who were fleeing Afghanistan, gave them sanctuary, gave them succor. Eventually, they regrouped, and we know what happened in Afghanistan. But vis-a-vis India, also, he revised his policy. Having done that, I must say that, he took some bold steps. Let me put it this way. First of all, the ceasefire came, November 2003 ceasefire. And I think that was after years that the levels of violence started going down. He did exercise a restraint on the terror groups operating from the Pakistani side. Didn't eliminate them or anything, but it was like a tap, you turn it off. At least he turned it off at a minimum. And violence levels went down sharply in Kashmir. Though I must say that terror attacks continued from Pakistan, inspired in Pakistan, from Pakistan, continue to take place elsewhere in India. We know the Mumbai train bombings by LET, and then, of course, Mumbai terror attacks, within 3 months of his demitting office. But he also, it was during his period, 2004 to 7, that back channel talks took place on Kashmir to arrive at some understandings on Kashmir. And I must tell you that those understandings were not in the nature of a settlement on Kashmir. There were some understandings, pragmatic and forward-looking, some steps which, if taken, would have eventually taken us towards a solution to the Kashmir issue, a non-territorial solution, which means along the realities as they existed then. But of course, he was unable to take them forward because he lost power in 2008. He couldn't take them to the logical conclusion. So I would, in summing up, say he changed the policy under tremendous pressure. But once he changed the policy, he did take some forward-looking steps, which, if they had gone to their logical conclusion, would have probably moved things in a better direction.
Ms. Sabharwal, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. Here in India, he will always be remembered as the villain of Kargil. Thank you very much indeed.